I don't know if I'm the only one, but I'm fairly certain that we all, at some point, go through a so-called gaming burnout. We look at our floor and the dozens of cases scattered across it. We check our Steam backlog and see all of the automatic updates running on games we've never even touched before. We see the articles and trailers promoting the next big, groundbreaking AAA game that'll change the way we look at video games forever and just think, who the hell cares? Seeing one game after another flop, completely miss their mark, or simply just flat out lie to the consumers tends to destroy the faith and excitement one can muster for the up and coming titles. I personally haven't bought a game on its release date in years. I honestly can't remember the last game I got excited for. I did decide to make an exception though this year, which as you can imagine was an incredibly rare occasion for me, but I'm not comfortable talking about that just yet. I'm sure most of us can relate, but when we were young and got our first console, most of us didn't have a clue what we were doing. Odds were that you probably didn't even have a memory stick in your console, or even knew how to save a file, resulting in you doing the same level, the same movements, the same gameplay, over and over and over again. But you didn't mind, you were having fun. I'm a creature of habit, so whenever I get tired of giving new titles a shot or waiting until the developers finally patch them until the point that they're playable, I tend to refer to old games that I did enjoy whenever they came out. But as I was about halfway through my 28th Skyrim Stealth Archer playthrough, I realized I wasn't playing the game, I was just managing it. Continuously dipping in and out of my mod manager, googling ways to work around patches and bugs. Hell, even the order in which I did the quests was the same as all of the previous playthroughs that I did. Bored out of my mind and not knowing what to do with myself, I was scrolling through the PlayStation Store recently, looking up every game I came across and checking their reviews, as I'm not capable of forming my own opinion, but also because the time of buying something because it looks cool has stopped being valuable ever since my parents stopped buying me things. I came across a game that across the internet only received praise and admiration. A whole world opened up in front of me, to be honest, as like I mentioned, I barely watch gaming related news anymore, or releases for that matter, so I was almost kinda shocked that this game was seen as one of the biggest games of 2018. Now, just to paint a better picture, I'm a RPG kinda guy. They've always been my favorite genre of video games, with sandbox action adventure games being a close second. So I went into this game with no expectations at all, actually predicting to not even like it. So it's pretty safe to say it came as a surprise that this was probably the most fun I've had with a game in recent history. Writing a script for this video was weird to me, as I'm used to, at least briefly, describe what a game is about or how the story starts off. With Hollow Knight, that isn't possible. No, really, you're basically just a guy who enters a ghost town and starts slaughtering families. And let me tell you, every second of it is amazing. No, jokes aside, I was constantly waiting for the story to begin, so to speak. Waiting for a quest marker, a companion, or NPC to tell me what to do. Anything at all. But the more I advanced throughout the story, the more I started to realize that I was already playing the story. This may sound pretty dumb, but throughout the years I've gotten so used to not even listening to what's going on or actually paying attention, because there's always a marker pointing me in the right direction, that it legit took me a few hours for this concept to settle in. I'm not gonna rant about minimaps or quest markers in video games, because I understand why they're there and actually think that they make a lot of sense when used properly, that is. But the way Hollow Knight handles it truly was a state-of-the-art experience for me. There are no quest markers, no quest objective, not even a waypoint. In fact, there is nothing. At least until you run into this character that tells you that he's an adventurer and draws maps of areas he's visited, and if you'd like to buy one. So you're like, sure, hit me up. Now you can actually see what the area looks like. Only you probably still don't know where you're at. But then Howard Carter over here is like, why don't you visit my wife in our shop? And in their shop, you can not only buy markers to pinpoint important locations, but also this little beauty, which shows you exactly where you're at on the map. Now, why is this interesting? Because all of it is completely optional. If you want to traverse the caves of this abandoned ghost town without ever knowing exactly where you are or where to find things, that's 100% up to you. I've had evenings where I played this game and legit made zero progress at all. Like, I didn't have a clue where to go, what to do, nothing. And still, not once did I feel the need to look up a guide or a walkthrough, because the game does such a great job at rewarding you for exploring. There are so many hidden paths, secret entrances and unreachable areas that whenever you bump into a new ability or upgrade, increasing your mobility, something just clicks. When you learn how to dash or double jump, you suddenly think of those spots that you previously couldn't enter or reach, and if you've marked them properly, you can now travel back to them and start exploring. During a playthrough, you will undoubtedly run through the same areas dozens, maybe even hundreds of times, but because you acquire new knowledge every time that you do, the experience is different each and every time. Speaking of different experiences each and every time, you might be watching this and wonder, so how do you even get those new abilities and upgrades? Well, it's a bit of a coin flip, to be honest, between intense parkour or intense boss fights. Yeah, that's about it. Now, the parkour kind of speaks for itself. The spiky stuff is a no-go, and as long as you avoid it, you'll be fine. But the boss fights, okay, so like, I'm not much of a grinder. I never really bothered with Souls games, a bit of Bloodborne just because it was so awesome, but I'm never really into those get punished, retry, punished, retry, punished, retry, etc. types of games. But boy, did Hollow Knight become an exception. The normal enemies you bump into tend to just be reskins of enemies you've came across in other areas, either exploding, charging, or whatever this guy was doing. And to be fair, most of them just tend to explode. But I shit you not, each and every boss fight was completely unique. I don't know what it is that intrigued me so much about the combat in the game, but looking back at it, my guess is that the game is so easy to learn, but incredibly difficult to master. Even though 90% of your attacks will be you hammering down the attack button, if you just stand still and spam, you will die, like a lot. There's something about the simplicity of the combat that feels very rewarding when you finally do beat a tough enemy or boss fight. When you think about it, all you can do is attack or dodge. The battles you'll face are completely in your hands. You don't have to beat yourself up over messing up a combo or activating an ability at the wrong time, because there aren't any. Just like with the exploration part, simplicity tends to work here, letting the player discover and experiment on their own, without telling them what to do, and most importantly, handing out significant rewards for doing so. I'm very aware of the fact that different games try and accomplish different things. There's a reason games like Dragon Age Origins or Knights of the Old Republic still get so much admiration, even though they are considered ancient at this point. Judging those games negatively because the gameplay is clunky or stiff would be like saying McDonald's isn't tasty because their burger meat is too dry. You don't go to McDonald's for a beef Wellington. You don't play Civilization for realistic political debates. You don't play Super Smash Bros. To save the princess, and you don't play Hollow Knight to feel restricted. I guess I'm bringing this up because throughout the last couple of years there are a lot of games that are going through a bit of a identity crisis. While RPGs are losing their role-playing aspects, third-person action adventurers are starting to implement them, where certain flagships in the industry are losing their touch, essentially making the same stuff over and over again because it's the safest option. Others have reinvented themselves, improving on previous mistakes and flaws. Hollow Knight doesn't try to be anything or anybody else. It had a clear vision and idea on what it wanted to represent and absolutely nailed it. I guess that I'm kind of contradicting myself, as I'm praising a game for being original and creative but still trying to compare it to others, but the reason for that is essentially the entire reason why I made this video in the first place. I was so sick and tired of picking up a game and within the first 10 minutes nitpicking flaws and realizing that this would be the core concept of the game. What I do in these first few minutes is how my next few hours and probably even days will look like. Hollow Knight was the first game in like forever that made me forget about time, that I started playing with just a hour or two mentality and suddenly realized that the entire evening had gone by. Reverting back to the analogy I made at the start, I felt like a kid again, being stuck and not knowing how to proceed but feeling satisfied whenever I found a solution on my own. Some may call it unfair to compare an indie game to a AAA title, but at least this indie game does everything that it tries perfectly. Hollow Knight wasn't just a coincidentally fun game that I just tended to like a lot. It changed the way I look at games in general. I will still look at flaws and mistakes developers have made in games, as nothing is perfect, but at least now I won't feel the need to only play the so-called biggest and best games in the industry. There's just something about a straightforward concept that just works that really appealed to me here. Instead of throwing as many half-assed concepts your way, it only gives you a handful, but that handful is worth more than 1 billion average game mechanics ever could. If you stumbled onto this video by chance and happened to watch it until the end, I'd like to know what you thought of the game and if you agree with anything I said, but more importantly, if you know any other types of games like Hollow Knight, as I'm dying to experiment and try more things like this, please let me know. But until that moment comes, I'm just gonna go and play a little bit more. I mean, what's an hour or two more, right?